And so, one of the things about my hardened silence is that in the dark web, when the world started to look for certain types of geniuses, that is where, well, when people started to realize the childhood that Elon Musk went through, then people started to realize that geniuses come from different realms of the world, and that is where somebody ended up stumbling upon me. And so here is something that Elon Musk would probably comprehend. So the thoughts of an SRA victim. So that's what I am. And I'm a super genius on a comparable level as him. So here's the things that people on that level, Elon comes from an abusive world. So the thought of putting me away, that is where people threaten me in SRA ways about putting me in psych units, and that was from a very, or basically throwing me in an imprisonment way from a very early on age. And that lingered with me for a long time in my life. They also, essentially, I felt different than every other child because I knew that no other children, certain children around me, wouldn't be having to do this, sometimes nightly. And I felt different. I think stuff that nobody else thinks. One of the things that defines me is pretty much all day long is I spend my days thinking stuff that nobody else thinks. I read random stuff, I don't. One of the cognitive aspects to this is that when it comes to words, words mean so many secondary meanings to me that it becomes difficult. I know how to read in normal ways. I can read in every way. But that one of the aspects of this causes like a secondary cognitive aspect is where every word means a second thing to me, and that I fight that while trying to be cognitively like aware in the first way, in the first person kind of way. But that when I read, essentially I prefer things in a very concise way, and that has to do with trainings from this world that has built subconscious secondary meaning to words, and that has become somewhat of a cognitive block and an apprehensiveness of reading. I don't necessarily like to read. I prefer to see audio and video as opposed to reading. And it becomes something that I just delete reading from my life in lots of ways. I read random stuff like that's where I just like I like YouTubes because they have lots of random stuff for me. Kind of like I just saw this Elon Musk video, and that this is the kind of stuff that comes from that. this is essentially my notes from one interview or a compilation of interviews. I just want to learn. I have it would almost be like an innate obsession about just learning anything and everything. It's something that I can't explain. I'm always feeding my brain so much so that I got a pair of hearing aids just to brainwash myself while I sleep with the world's most advanced genius education. Because I have an innate need to always be learning things. It's almost like it would be, well, it's never considered an obsession ever, but it might be classified in a psychology way as an obsession to learn everything, but nobody ever discounts that. That's what geniuses do. Bored in normal life. So essentially, I sit around doing academic genius demonstrations all day because normal life is the most boring thing in the world to me. Unless my little boy, my witch, is around. That's the only thing about normal life that I won't view as boring. I find them the most fascinating people ever created in my life. I think a logical path. One of the things that I have a difficult time in normal life with is that I have an increasingly ultimate ability of thinking in a logical progression. Most people have errors that I notice in their logical progression. I'll attempt, well, I don't normally say anything. I don't like to correct people per se, but I'll notice everybody's illogical thinking path on anything. And that is where I want people to realize that I'm the world's most advanced victim of SRA. And that what I know about people that fall into a similar category as me is that people that fall into a similar category as me, they only do the most SRA to the people that are like me. And that this is where there's no assumptions made, but when it comes to the world of white supremacy and people who do that type of stuff are usually involved in some form of white supremacy. That is where, when I view Elon Musk, there's he has all the checklists of coming from South Africa, which was all white supremacy while he was growing up, and that those people down there do that stuff, just like up here in the Northwest. I understand advanced stuff, and I don't understand why nobody else does. See, I don't understand why nobody else understands advanced stuff. Because it seems very simple in ways to me. Most things. And that one of the things that I wonder in the world is that, like I say, the people that get the most advanced SRA, I'm able to make comprehend some of the most advanced stuff in the world very simply and they comprehend. The people that have the most SRA. So, extreme reason. So that kind of goes into extreme logical and rationality. I just have that. Like, I won't understand why people don't just have extreme logic and rationality. Need stimulation, like essentially intellectual stimulation. Like, I got through my life needing that. It's like an issue that I have in my life where I need intellectual stimulation in some way. Doesn't matter what it is. It could even be looking at Wikipedia about Star Wars. I could even be bored, stoned, and I would need to look at something theoretically smart, like looking through the whole history of Wikipedia of Star Wars, the encyclopedia of Star Wars. That's the kind of shit that I need, some sort of stimulation like that. I do isolation. I don't necessarily relate to any people in the world, ever. And that while I have a very good ability of integrating in with people, I'm different. And that always is an issue, or not. I don't know if it's an issue, but it's just a reality for me that even though I'm really good at interacting and being social and stuff like that, and even extroverted in every way, when I'm around everybody, this is what I'll feel. That's essentially where, in lots of ways, I'm just different than everybody. Everything I do. Nobody at 40 years old spends their whole days doing demonstration. Nobody. Nobody in the world. And that I don't have any problem doing it all day. And that in ways, it is like literally the one thing that I've found that brings the needed intellectual stimulation in my life. And that this is where these phrases were pulled off of interviews of Elon Musk. And that I really wonder sometimes, because the things that he does in an intellectual way and the kind of witch that he chose is the kind of witch that I would choose. She's just like my witch. And that I really wonder sometimes. And because I'm the world's foremost expert at this, and that one of the ways that I find victims is that I find people that are just like me. Just like me. Even women that are like stupid and dumb. They're still like me. And that's where when I find anybody that, even, you know what? Even the ones that look like me. And that, when I saw those little boy pictures and hippies, it's exactly how I looked. And that's what they look for in this. The people that do this. The exact image of Elon Musk as a child is exactly what I look like as a child. And I'm like the most SRA person ever. So keep that in mind. And that they only choose people that have a predisposition of being super geniuses. So keep that in mind. Because that is what I look for as an expert, because I attempt to look for people that have a hidden amnesia to that stuff. I really do. And that this person has all the preliminary high probability overlays in a lesser way that lead me into a potential belief of this situation. Okay? And so, as you know, I don't make the whole idea is that when people fall into my checklist, and that I have a very scrutinized, like fine-tuned checklist, and that here's like the psychology checklist, and that then there's a visual checklist, and that then there's an intellectual checklist, and then as you start to add up, that's where I start to wonder. And then I notice the witch they put a baby in, and that I have a completely wizard's accurate way of determining that stuff, because most people are ignorant. See, to come from that means to know everything. To come from that means to know everything. Everybody else is a psychologist or something that didn't experience that stuff. To know, to experience, that is what my checklist is. And that, you know, if he was to have something like this, well, that's why I show people, because I have one. If he was to have something like that on his chest, that means SRA. So keep in mind, because these scars on my eyes also mean that. Sometimes they just have these or something. And if you look at the end of your penis, if there's a dot, and then there's also potentially one on the butthole. Now, then you would have to have somebody look at your butthole. Most people don't do that. But this is the most common one. This right here. This mark. It's not a birthmark. It's a candle scar where they essentially take a candle and they put it out on your chest, and then the wax is still hot and it kind of burns your body a little bit as a little boy. And then it makes this mark. So, just realize that this is why I show people. I'm trying to get the world to like be looking at their chest, looking for this mark. That's what I want to know. I want to know if people have that. I think people should be more honest about it, because you know what? There's a whole Disney World. There is. There's a whole Disney World that has to be destroyed. There really is. A whole Disney World.